Attitude in Southeast Asia and the Muslim world. He also worked on in computational statistics in Germany and the US. Thank you so much for coming. So we just meet now, and it's a real pleasure also for during this session to meet new colleagues from on Indonesian politics. And Wijayanto, who is a colleague with whom we have worked for several years now, is an associate professor of mass media, digital politics, and democracy at Diponegoro University, and the director of the Center for Media and Democracy at the Indonesian NGO LP3ES. From 2023 to 2026, he is the chairperson of the National Civil Society Coalition on Democratization and Moderation of the Indonesian Cybersphere, also called Koalisi Damai, so the Peace Coalition. These four specialists will provide valuable insights into the evolving political landscape in Indonesia. And to open the presentation, I would like to invite Professor Arifianto to take the floor. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for the overview, as well as for introducing all the speakers, Gabriel. I really appreciate it, and I think it's an honor for me to speak on this public seminar on Indonesian elections. And we are grateful for ESRC for being our host today. I think I just wanted to give a general overview of the Indonesian regional elections, or the bahasa term is bill. Just a little bit more distance with the mic because it's making a lot of echo. Okay, thanks. Okay then. I'm just going to give an overview on the Indonesian regional elections, or Pilkada, which was held on the November 27th of this year. As Gabriel pointed out earlier, it's the second of the two-part Indonesian election held in last year. The first one was the presidential and legislative elections that were held on February 14th. And as we know, the presidential election resulted in the election of retired General Prabowo Subianto, who's now the current president since October of 2024. But regional elections of this year is basically a continuation of that election, and I think basically the consensus among the Indonesian election and specialists whom have studied the result over the past few months is that there is a very different dynamic from the previous Pilkada elections that were held in the country over the past 20 years. The first Pilkada election started in 2004 after Indonesia enacted the regional election law as part of its political reform, the reformasi of the late 1990s. Regional election began in 2004, but what happened usually in each Pilkada election cycle was that it is usually a quite competitive election contested by multiple parties. And what characterized each regional election usually was that the different political parties going to form very pragmatic, very transactional local coalitions, whether it's for the governor's elections, regions or bupati, as well as mayoral elections. Usually these coalitions are quite flexible and pragmatic, conducted by a lot of local power brokers and local politicians. And there isn't much meddling from Jakarta with regard to how all these local coalitions were supposed to be formed. There is a lot of as well as not many interventions characterizing how the local officials as well as the local voters supposed to back certain political candidate supported by whoever runs the national government. But what happened in this November Pilkada was that all these competitive and very local-based election, the dynamics have changed considerably. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that of the national election, that basically there is a political consensus between the outgoing president Joko Widodo, commonly known as Jokowi, with that of his successor Prabowo. And basically this consensus means that there isn't whether it's a national or regional level election, there has to be like a unified effort to unite as many of the political parties as possible. Political opposition were kind of like discouraged, and that and then also the local candidates that normally, were free to choose whichever political parties, they wanted to form. They wanted to go to coalition with, which usually would result in maybe 3, 4, sometimes even 5 different candidates running together in a particular election. There's pressure from members of the Prabowo's onward Indonesia coalition that, well, instead of running 2 or 3 different candidates from the same coalition team, what you have is you all have to run under a single coalition. The Kim coalition, and this is mostly what happened, throughout the 570 or so regional elections that took place last November. That basically the Kim coalition wanted to marginalize the only main opposition party in that contesting the Pilkada, which is the PDIP, the Indonesia Democratic Party of Struggle, that had a fallout with former President Jokowi late in just before the presidential election campaign began in 2023, and that fallout continues through the year 2024, and basically, the Jokowi Prabowo had a pact to basically try to marginalize PDIP, from the Pilkada election. And as a result, we can tell from the result of the gubernatorial election. I'm just going to look at the provincial governor's election to simplify, the election result. There are like currently 37 provinces in Indonesia. All of them have hosted governor's election. And out of these 37 gubernatorial election, the Kim coalition won in 26 of them. 26 out of 37. And then the PDIP, the main opposition party, only won in 8, and they lost in some of their stronghold, provincial stronghold like Central Java, where PDIP historically would have won more than 2/3 of the vote, and then East Java, North Sulawesi, and North Sumatra, and a lot of it has to do because of this, national effort to try to marginalize the PDRP on the part of Kim. Yes, there's it is true that PDIP managed to sneak in a rare victory in the Jakarta election by the smallest of margins. PDIP candidate Pramono Anung managed to prevail over Ridwan Kamil from Kim. But the dynamic of Jakarta is very different from the rest of Indonesia, because Jakarta is characterized by voter space that are better educated, have a higher income, tend to be better informed, yeah, compared to the rest of Indonesia's voters. So as a result, the Jakarta electorate is less influenced by the effort at the national level to try to marginalize PDIP, as well as trying to basically steer voters away toward the Kim candidates, whether it's done through vote buying activities such as the distribution of social assistance or bansos scheme all over to prospective voters, or more coercive means to pressure people from to vote for Kim candidate. Because of the Jakarta's dynamic, such hamstrung electoral manipulation, even though that it does happen in Jakarta, it did not succeed in win over the Jakarta electorate to the Kim side. Although one should also be added that the Kim managed to marginalize former presidential candidate Anies Baswedan. That after he lost the presidential race, he wanted to run again as governor of Jakarta, but thanks to all the pressure from the Kim coalition, as well as last minute political dealing between Prabowo and Megawati Soekarno Putri, the PDIP chairwoman, and this was kept out from being able to run as a potential PDIP candidate in Jakarta, and they ran another candidate, Pramono Anung, on the PDIP ticket itself. So basically, to conclude, I think the consensus among most election analysts is that this year's Pilkada, unlike previous Pilkada, it's far less competitive. And then there is more effort at electoral manipulation, as well as for outright vote buying, to try to persuade as many voters as possible to support Prabowo's coalition partners who are belong in the Kim Plus, and marginalize the opposition candidate represented by PDIP. For a more in-depth case study on how this process works, at one of the regional election that we watch closely at RSIS, I will now turn the floor to my colleagues, Bang Huzaifah, who will talk about the election of Pilkada in the Riau Island or Gabriel. Bang Lucy, the floor is now yours.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. Oh, sorry, I do not know French except for the good morning or hello. Anyway, okay, so I'll be talking about this the Pilkada, particularly focused in Capri or Riau Islands. Okay, so the premise that I'm starting with is that if you look at politics, right, and political parties, normally when people vote for certain political parties. For example, if you look at the recent US elections and whatnot. So when people vote for the political parties, normally it's because of what? What do normally people vote? Why do people support certain colors or certain parties over the other? What do you think the reason is? Can I ask that first? Huh?
Ideas.
Ideas? What else? To relate to that person, some values that they share, right? Okay, so these are some of the ideas that voters would want. Okay, so when we talk about political parties, okay, certain ideas, because we know that when these political parties in power, they send some kind of signals that some policies, like what kind of policies that they will generate or develop. So therefore, people vote in that sense, right? So when I studied about like IR and all that, so I have this kind of idea. Okay, so people vote this because of this. But I've been working on Indonesia since 2018, although before that on terrorism, but focusing more on from 2018. So when I look at the trend of elections and whatnot, I find that theory, that concept doesn't really gel, doesn't really transpire into the political realities. So I was like wondering, what happened actually? What, I wouldn't say what went wrong, but like, how do I explain that, right? So my presentation is basically based on that premise. So if you look at, I mentioned earlier, so political ideology of a party, so they are motivated by political ideologies, and this ideological affiliation for political parties send signals about what the policies or what types of policies that they are going to develop or to produce when they're in power. So how do we lead Indonesia's current political ideology? Okay, so at the end of my presentation, I hope this is one of the main points that I want to highlight first. So basically, my so-called hypothesis or my idea is that the Indonesia's complex multi-party system necessitates a continuous cycle of political recalibration, driven more by pragmatic needs than by ideological commitment. So in that sense, that ideas somehow are being put aside, but they function more into the pragmatic needs that they are doing in living up the political realities that they are facing. So not so much of an idea. Okay, so this is my main argument. So if you look at the current political leadership under Prabowo, right? So you can see his strategy, right? He tried to put everything together. He tried to share his power. He tried to put everything on his side to have this political power sharing. So you see the Kim coalitions and all that. It's growing bigger and bigger, right? So from Kim and then become Kim plus, I do not know what's next, right? So he's trying to put everyone in his gang, right? In his team to be part of in a way so-called a political power sharing, and he's the leader of all these things. Of course, if you look at the strategy of inclusivity, there can be two things. One of it is to consolidate his power and to minimize opposition, definitely. And also, if you have less opposition, technically you can govern effectively. So you don't have that kind of rebuttal every now and then and whatnot. Okay, so what are the effects? So we can see there are major groups shifting alliances, shifting coalitions. So if you look at Nasdem and PKS, among others, so if you look at Nasdem, first he endorsed Anies Baswedan, and then after that he shifts to Kim. Similarly with PKS, aligned with Prabowo, then after that shifted to Kim. Okay, so in the Capri case, right? Of course, Capri is an island near Singapore. Closest to Singapore, they have like I think seven or eight regions. So of course, I focus on the main ones. on the gubernatorial elections, the mayoral elections, Batam, and also the Bintan region. Why these three? Because first, of course, the governor is considered one of the highest in the Pilkada. And then second, Batam, because Batam is one of the largest populations in the whole Kepri. So if let's say people want to find voters, they will go for Batam because it's like almost half of the whole population of Kepri. And why Bintan? Because Bintan is in Tanjung Pinang and is the province capital city of the Kepri province. Okay, so if you look at these three, right, of course, I put the left side. These are actually the winners from the elections. So you see the Ansar Ahmad and Nanyang for the governor, and then the Batam Mayor Amsakar, and then the region is the Robi Kurniawan and Debbie Marianti. Okay, so if you look at all this, so when I talk about Nasdem, right, so Nasdem joined Kim, right, earlier when I said, but if you look at this election, you can see that Nasdem actually are opposing the Kim's so-called coalition on the gubernatorial election. Okay, and then after that, on the level of mayor, then Nasdem joined the coalition, and then on the Bintan region, Nasdem joined. So if you look at the opposition, who we know is the PDIP. So in this regard, PDIP was against the governor, PDIP was against the mayor, but then PDIP was joining the region. And the region is quite interesting because if you look at Robi Kurniawan, he is the son of Ansar Ahmad. So it's like you are opposing the father, but you are supporting the son. So if you look at Robi, right, Robi Kurniawan, he's the son of Ansar Ahmad. So it's kind of like, so what does it actually say? How can, like, you're opposing me, but then you're supporting my son. So what does it actually tells you, right? So there are, in a way, in Kepri, there are a lot of, I would say, local needs, local pragmatic needs, whereby these political parties are supporting the pair or the person based on what they have. Of course, I mean, I don't want to say this, but sometimes in the Indonesian politics, people always say there's always this money politics, right? But I think money politics is one side lah. Of course, if you look at the reports and whatnot, but I don't want to go there. But it's more of you look at when the choices that they make, right? So sometimes it's not just about political ideas per se, or sometimes it's not just about, okay, the national level doing this, then therefore we have to follow. Not necessarily. It doesn't really transpire in the context of Kepri. So in the Kepri, each political parties, they will have their certain ways, certain moves that they think will suit best for their local population. Okay, so I try to finish up quickly because I think the discussion after this would be more extensive rather than you hear what I'm saying alone, right? Okay, so technically, if you look at the Kepri case, right, the shifting allegiance highlight the fluidity of party support. So parties in Indonesia, they are not so rigid in terms of their ideological whole, and then of course, in terms of the local needs, there's this kind of complex web of strategic decisions that they have to make. Oh, I have to support the Kim coalitions, or I have to support my local individuals, or who do I need to support? And then, but last but not least, my concern is always this: the erosion of ideological and value commitments may eventually weaken a party's grassroots support. So if you look at Pilkada, thank you so much.
So I'm going to present some slides about findings from a survey that my colleague and I did about the elections, but also what happened afterwards. And I'm going to focus on two topics here. The first is young voters political behavior, and the second one is Prabowo and Jokowi dynamics. Why I chose to focus on young voters and then Jokowi Prabowo is because first, young voters, that is millennials and Gen Zs, they comprise about 56% of the Indonesian electorate. So we really need to understand how they behave, how they process political information, and what they think about the current political elites and the current political systems. And the second, why focusing on Jokowi and Prabowo is because like they're pretty much the two top guys in Indonesian political landscape right now. It was Jokowi support that won Prabowo the presidency. But the question then is, can Indonesia sustain two sons, or will one of the sons have to set for the other to rise and continue to dominate the political landscape? And I'm thinking of this young voters and Prabowo Jokowi dynamic more of as young voters as a demographic change that is long-term force in Indonesian political landscape. So the face of Indonesian politics 20, 30 years from now is going to be shaped by millennials and Gen Zs today. So this long-term force. And Jokowi and Prabowo, they are short-term forces. They're gonna like they're really dominating and they're really dominant today, but there is only so many years that people can live, and at some point they will get old and their influence will fade. So they're more like short-term forces in Indonesian political landscape. And for this presentation, I'm analyzing recently collected data that I did with my colleague. We call this data high-res SICAP, high-resolution SICAPs. SICAP is attitudes. It stands for high-frequency surveys on Indonesia's knowledge of and attitudes on politics. What we did was we ran 58 weekly surveys from November 2023 to January 2025. So it just ended like 3 weeks ago. In each week, we surveyed about 1,600 respondents. So in total, we gathered responses from 90,000 respondents. And I'm really glad to have a colleague that shared my sentiment in making data open. So what we are doing is we release the data to public. Anyone can access it, not only scholars, but also journalists and pretty much everyone. So they just need to go to our websites and click and fill out some form, and then you can download the data for free. And this is distribution of respondents compared to the national statistics. You can see that our distribution of respondents is pretty much approximating the distribution of populations in Indonesia across these provinces. Jawa Tengah and Jawa Timur are a little bit undersampled, but the undersampling is not really severe because it's just minus 4 percentage point. Bottom line is that our data is as close as nationally representative as you can get from online surveys. Just to give an overview of the findings, millennials and Gen Zs, they form the foundation of support for Prabowo. They are more likely to support Prabowo than older generations. But that doesn't mean that they are less supportive of democracy. In fact, they are just as supportive of democracy as the older generations, but there are three, at least, differences that are quite notable. The first is that they have weaker collective memory, they have lower political knowledge, and they rely more on social media compared to mainstream news media like printed newspapers. And then in terms of Prabowo and Jokowi dynamics, I find that voters in general continue to think of Jokowi quite positively, but the issue is that, and the challenge is that the favorability of Prabowo increases in a much higher rate compared to favorability of Jokowi. So this is the overview of the findings. Let's go to the details. The first question is, what's the matter with young voters? And the puzzle was that Gen Zs and millennials are age groups that are most likely to support Prabowo in the February last year. And this is despite his Prabowo's ties to Harto and records of human rights violations. So The argument would be that young voters, they should be more liberal, they should be more open to human rights, more progressive. But the problem was, why did they support Prabowo given Prabowo's track record of human rights violations? So this is level of support for Prabowo among different age groups. You can see here. This is support for Prabowo among Gen Zs, millennials, and Gen X and boomers. You can see like Gen Zs and millennials, they're much more likely to support Prabowo than the older generations, Gen X and boomers. One possibility was that some people would like to easily blame younger voters as they just simply less liberal than older generations. But that's not true. In our survey, we asked respondents, how important do you think the following things are for democracy? Free elections and civil liberties, but also citizens obeying the government and military taking over when government is incompetent. You can see that this is the y-axis is generations, and the x-axis is the support. You can see that the shape of the distributions for Gen Zs and the older generations are pretty much similar across these four questions. There are two takeaways here. Gen Zs and millennials, they are not necessarily less supportive of democracy or think about democracy in a more authoritarian way compared to older generations. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is that Indonesians in general, they're thinking about democracy. They understand democracy in relatively less liberal ways compared to Western voters do. Yes, they associate democracy with free elections and civil liberties, but they also believe that democracy means that the military is taking over when the government is incompetent, or that democracy means that citizens have to obey the government. So in that sense, millennials and Gen Zs are not really different from their older counterparts. But areas where millennials and Gen Zs are really different is first, in terms of their collective memory, that is their memory of authoritarian regime under Suharto. We asked respondents, do you know or do you remember about anti-Chinese riots in 1998? Or do you know or remember about the Semanggi shootings where the military shot at and killed student demonstrators? You can see that boomers here, about like 66% said that they remembered and know about the Semanggi shootings, and 48% said that they remembered and know about anti-Chinese riots. But the Gen Zs, those born after 1996, like very small percentage of them know and remember about all of these dark episodes of Indonesian history. I will discuss later why I think that's the case. And the second area where younger voters are quite different from their older counterparts is their knowledge about politics. We asked political knowledge questions. These are the questions. This is not really difficult. I mean, if you're a political scientist, you kind of know the answers. This is the boomers. The average boomer answered the question about 1.69. The average number of questions per boomer is 1.69, and you can see across these age groups, the younger voters tend to answer fewer correct questions. For Gen Z voters, the average number of correct question answered is just about 1.09. So younger voters, they are less knowledgeable about politics than their older counterparts. And lastly, in terms of social media, or where do people get their information? This is printed media, and this is news websites like Detik.com, Kompas.com, and this is from Instagram, and this is from TikTok. You can see that this is the this is the traditional media, this is the bordering traditional and new media, news websites, and this is this is not exactly news media. You can see that for printed media, the highest consumption daily use is among boomers. Gen Zs use printed media very infrequently. Only 12% of them said that they use or read printed media at least daily. But millennials and Gen Zs, the vast majority of them said that they get their information daily from Instagram and TikTok. Not even from news websites like the Ticom. So that's some patterns about young voters' behaviors that I uncovered in the dataset. There are other patterns, but we can save that for the discussion section. The second one is Jokowi and Prabowo, or is it gonna be a case of Jokowi versus Prabowo? This is my tracking of Prabowo and Jokowi's net favorability from June to December last year. The triangles are Prabowo net favorability, and this line here is Jokowi's net favorability. Net favorability is simply the percent of respondents who like the figure minus the percent of respondents who dislike the figure, because the survey asks respondents, do you like or do you dislike this figure? You can see early on, Prabowo and Jokowi, they are kind of like twins, pretty similar until the controversy surrounding the Pilkada decisions on MK, where MK made a decision to basically that would forbid Kaisang to run for governor in Central Java, but then DPR they wanted to pass a law that would allow Kaisang to run, and then the public went to protest, etc. That happened in 20th August to 22nd August.
MK, Constitutional Court.
Yeah, the Constitutional Court. This is the protest, the days where protest, the survey week where the protest happened. You can see that like the favorability of Jokowi really took a deep dive in this week. Prabowo, there's a dive, but not as deep. And Jokowi never recovered from this. In terms of Prabowo's favorability, Jokowi never recovered. You can always see this gap. And after Prabowo inauguration, public just became more positive toward Prabowo after he officially became president. And you see the deep dive here. Anyone want to take a guess why favorabilities of Prabowo and Jokowi took a deep dive just like before New Year? It's the 12% VAT tax, value-added tax. The government wanted to increase value-added tax or GST here in Singapore from 11% to 12%. And the public really didn't like that. They evaluated these two figures more negatively. And this is another example of Prabowo becoming more positively evaluated by the public compared to Jokowi. This is simply the percent of respondents who evaluated Prabowo more positively than Jokowi. Initially, they are like twins. Prabowo and Jokowi evaluated as similarly positively by the public, but then after the Constitutional Court controversies, the public thought about Prabowo more positively, and Jokowi never beat Prabowo again after that. And this is just breaking down this chart by age group. You can see that just like in the election where millennials and Gen Zs really formed the foundations of Prabowo support, it is also millennials and Gen Zs who grow more positive toward Prabowo than toward Jokowi. You see, this is the number of percentage of respondents who evaluated Prabowo more positively than Jokowi. Millennials, you can see really the increase. You can really see the increase also as well among Gen Zs. Whereas boomers and Gen X, the older voters, they don't see as much positive increase on their views of Prabowo. So what's my take on this? I think the first take is, if we talk about Indonesian democracy, yes, it is important to educate voters, to teach voters about what democracy is, that democracy means free elections, that democracy has these rules about civil liberties. But I call that abstract ideas of democracy. In order to sustain Indonesia's democracy, we also need to preserve collective memory. And that's something that Indonesians are really haven't been able to do that quite well. In schools, students do not really learn about what happened under Suharto's Orde Baru. Didn't really learn about the genocide of 1965. Didn't really learn about the anti-Chinese riots in 1998. Yes, they learned about there was this regime under Suharto called Orde Baru, and then there is this student movement. But the dark periods that mark the transition from Suharto regime to the current era of reformasi or democratization, students didn't really learn about that. On the other hand, we really need to preserve that memory, because that will remind us that democracy that we have today is not really something that's easily won in 1998. So there's really homework for whoever is interested and cares about preserving Indonesia's democracy. And then we see as well in the previous slides, generational gaps in terms of vote preferences and electoral, as well as online behaviors. Gen Zs and millennials, they are obviously more familiar with technology and online news sources, and that is influencing their political behaviors in a different way than the older generations. And then the biggest question, I think, in the coming year, at least until 2029, is Jokowi and Prabowo. Is it going to be a sustainable cooperation, or is it an impending competition? Because how these two figures interact with each other, that's going to shape Indonesians' national politics in a big way. And that's ends my presentation. Thank you again for being here and for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Professor Nathanael. So now we have our last speaker, Wijayanto from Undip in Semarang.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for having me, and thank you for ESSEC Business School, CNRS, IRASEC, and other co-hosts for this conference. Thank you for having me, and I apologize that I'm not able to be there offline. And I feel really honored to be among you and to also listen from previous speakers, Dr. Arifianto, Syed Huzaifah, and Dr. Nathanael Sumaktoyo. I guess it's you put my schedule right in the right time after Dr. Nathanael, who presented about the source of information of Gen Z, who are, among others, about the source of information from the internet. I will discuss specifically about the dynamics in the digital realm, in the social media, among the cyber troopers and I will compare 2019 and 2024 presidential elections. So my presentation will be entitled New Election, Old Effective Polarization, Comparing Cyber Troops Operations in Indonesia's 2019 and 2024 presidential election. Yeah. If you read Indonesian news today, then you will find this kind of news. It's just 14 January, so it's like just yesterday. In Tempo.co and also in Kompas, it's a story about how the new Minister of Information appointed one of the buzzers. And you can see on the news there that the buzzer was in online named Kurawa. And it's interesting that the minister mentioned that the reason why he was invited as the staff khusus, as special staff, was because he, among other, he has 454 followers in X in Twitter. So this is a story of how a buzzers can then climb the ladder to be a special staff in the ministerial office. Actually, this is not a very new story. A while ago, we heard a lot of stories about how the buzzers then transform into commissaris, commissioner in state enterprise in Indonesia. It's just an intermezzo to just give you the context of the topic that I'm going to present you. But to start, our research that I present today actually inspired by the Oxford findings, Oxford research released in 2019, who shared that in the world, in at least 70 countries in 2019, there were the cyber troops operation. And they define cyber troop as government or political party actors tasked with manipulating public opinion online. And they conducted social media propaganda or computational propaganda, whom they define as the use of algorithms, automation, and big data to shape public life. Since 2020, actually ongoing until now, together with colleagues from Amsterdam and also Roundtable as well, with Ward Scott and also Yanto Wijaya, we conducted research on cyber troops in Indonesia, starting from 2019 election. You know, the case that we studied builds on a revision of KPK law, New Normal 2020, Omnibus Law 2020, also the relocation of Indonesian capital 2022. We then followed that up with investigating the cyber troops and their social media propaganda in 2024 election. We also conduct comparative research comparing cyber troops in Indonesia, Thailand, and Philippines as well that we have presented last year in July in Amsterdam. One of the findings of our research, which has been released in a journal, was entitled "The Infrastructure of Domestic Influence Operations, Cyber Troops, and Public Opinion Manipulation Through Social Media in Indonesia." What I want to highlight here is that unlike Oxford research, we define cyber troops as networks of secretly paid actors using mostly anonymous social media accounts to engage in coordinated campaigns to manipulate public opinion. This is different with Oxford. They only define cyber troop as political party actors or state actors. In our findings, it's more than that. Sometimes they were funded by businessmen, individual politicians, so not only state or political party. And we also identify that cyber troops, they are paid and they are secretly paid, not just paid, but also secretly paid. So it's not declared publicly. And this is what we have learned as well. From our research, we found that cyber troops consist of coordinators who are individuals who recruit cyber troops and coordinate their activities. And then we have buzzers, foot soldier of online campaigns, the different, and then influencers, individual with some fame and a high number of followers, and then content creators prepare the materials, memes and hashtags that the buzzers will disseminate. I would like to highlight the difference between buzzers and influencers. Buzzers, they don't use their real names. They don't use their own name, their own identity. While influencers, they use their real names, their real identity, so people know who they are. And in this presentation, I would like to focus on these following questions to answer this following question. How have cyber troops operation in the preserved the political polarization that emerged from the 2019 election? How have the strategies and tactics of cyber troops in the 2024 election been shaped by and in turn reshaped pre-existing effective polarization? What are some changes and continuities in cyber troops operation strategy between the 2019 and 2024 election? First, I would like to define what is effective polarization. Effective polarization usually is distinguished with issue polarization, while issue polarization is characterized by increasing attitude extremity on policy issues among the mass public. Effective polarization posits that partisanship represents an important social identity that can exacerbate positive feelings toward the in-group and animosity toward the out-group. And that's according to Chan and Yi, 2024. And Druckmann and Lewandowski defines effective polarization as identifying with the party divides the world into a like in-group, one's own party, and dislike out-group, which give rise to in-group favoritism and bias, identifying opposing partisans negatively and co-partisans positively. It's also emphasized as well by Iyengar. Positive traits include patriotic, intelligent, honest, open-minded, and generous. Negative traits include hypocritical, selfish, and mean. And there's also Jati. Effective polarization can be described as the relationship of liking other people in the same party and disliking those in the opposite party, which leads to segregation of individuals and groups. This is briefly about the recent methods. We conduct social network analysis of the conversation in Twitter during 2019 and 2024 election, and independent view with 46 cyber troopers. From the SNA, I took it from Drone and Plate here. We can see, we remember back to 2019 election, there was this kind of polarizing issue between uji ngaji and visi misi. So testing ability of the candidate to read the holy book, the Holy Quran. And the hashtag is Prabowo takut tes ngaji. So Prabowo fears to read the Holy Quran. And there's another hashtag, Jokowi takut paparkan visi misi. So Jokowi fear to present the vision and mission. And you can see the polarizing there. And we still remember vividly how between 2019 to 2022, there was the word cebong was mentioned more than 4 million times. Cebong is baby frog, yeah? And then kampret, the bat, mentioned almost 4 million times. Cebong refers to the followers of Jokowi, and then kampret refer to the followers of Prabowo. And also kadrun, more than 4 million times mentioned, refer to the followers of Prabowo. This kind of polarization, attributing animal to the followers of the candidate was so extreme back then. We remember if we criticize to Jokowi, then we will, back then, people will categorize us as also kadrun, alias kadal gurun, or desert lizard. And this is the look of the visualization in the social media, kampret and cebong. And this has also happened, even though not in only two diametrical opposition. There are three polls: pro Anies, pro Prabowo, and pro Ganjar. This is the cluster of Prabowo supporters and Anies supporters, and Basuki supporters and Prabowo supporters. And this is the informants of our interview. We have 46 informants. 18 of them are those who support Jokowi 2019 and remain supporting Ganjar 2024. So you can see here the continuities and also the shifting position. In this research, I define staying supporting the same candidate if they support the same political party. For instance, if in 2019 supporting Jokowi, Jokowi is from PDIP, so it a buzzer will be seen as consistent if he supports also PDIP candidate, like supporting Ganjar. So 18 of them still remain supporting PDIP. Supporting Prabowo 2019 means supporting Gerindra and still supporting Prabowo in 2024. We have 11 informants. Only active in 2019, 8. Only active in 2000 and pro Jokowi 8. Only active in 2019 and pro Prabowo 3. Only active in 2024 pro Anies 6, and only active in 2024 pro Prabowo 5. Only active in 2024 pro Jokowi 13. And this one's the number of switching choices, the buzzers who switch choice, who become a informant, only 5. This is the example of interview a coordinator who support PDIP in 2019 by supporting Jokowi and remain with PDIP supporting Ganjar in 2024. He first actually helped Nasdem party, and then because Nasdem supporting Jokowi, then he also support Jokowi. And in 2024, he remained with PDIP. This is personal communication with buzzer who keep supporting Prabowo both in 2019 and also 2024. At first, he supported Sandiaga Uno in 2016, and then supporting Prabowo back then. And in 2024, he also supports Prabowo. But there are some switching choices. And this is what interesting about the 2024 election. In August, I still had job from 03 supporting Ganjar Mahfud. And then we remember suddenly the vice president appeared, the politics changed. Already everything that was in the mind yesterday was immediately reversed, especially when the president turned out to be, his son, chosen to be a deputy minister. This vice president. Now, finally, it has changed. All of its supported influencer of Mr. Jokowi, who used to participate in 03, supporting Ganjar and Mahfud, have also changed direction, especially with the support of senior in PDIP. Many have moved. So this is the example of those who change views, change support, and this is the example of those who used to support Prabowo, but then supporting Anies, because they want change according to buzzers. An influencers in our interview. And this is the use of personal attacks or character that then triggers polarization. Buzzers in an interview confess that we are demonizing Mahfud, really demonizing him. The hashtag was like no ethic. And also personal communication with the buzzers in November 21. I used he criticized Jokowi, but he attacked his son and also his wife, and he rather felt guilty there. And this is another personal communication with buzzers in January 2024, 25. How there's some nuance here, but he also suggested that negative message in the X was echoed more strongly. He tried to play it positive, but no response. So he come back to use the negative message. There's also another communication. He confessed that he has two kind of accounts, social media accounts, using real name and alter account using another name. And in the real account, he spread positive campaigns, but in the alter account, he used the negative campaign. He used also a black campaign, and he confessed that when we post positive things, it turns out they don't eat them. But almost most of the negative things are eaten by those people. Ya, kalau kampanye positif dimakan sama orang-orang, tapi kalau nggak dimakan sama orang-orang, tapi kalau negatif dimakan, jadi viral. So that's why he used negative campaign, including disinformation and black campaigns. But also some nuance there in which the Prabowo cyber troopers, they are aware that the Gen Z maybe should be approached differently, using more positive message. Using gemoy politics, he said, using songs, using gimmicks, clickbait as well. And this is another example of the interview. This is effective because on social media, people like gimmicks, shows, drama, and so on. It's very common on social media, and we also get great empathy, extraordinary empathy when Mr. Prabowo was in the third debate. Lots of crying and so on. We can say we are capitalizing, not utilizing it. We utilize the waving because they are real people, sad and so on. This is Prabowo being attacked and so on. So there's also some nuance there. These are some concluding remarks from our research. First, most of the cyber troopers remain supporting the same political party or candidate. Only a few changed their support, which means the old defined dies hard. Old strategy using combination of positive and negative campaigns are still commonly used in the 2024 elections. In the positive sides, campaigning a positive characteristic of candidate is among the weapon on the disposal. In the negative sides, attacking personal characteristics of opposing candidates practiced in presidential election continue to be practiced in the 2024 election. There were a new quote-unquote innovation of combining a candidate in such extreme leading to whitewashing, as I presented just a while ago. But overall, the picture is still about attributing positive character of a candidate while at the same time attaching negative ones to others. So the positive characteristic are for those whom we support, but for another candidate, we attack them. So this is black and white campaign. Overall, effective polarization remained the rule of the game played in 2024 election. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Wijayanto. So now we have 15 minutes for questions and answers. So I will give the microphone to the audience if you have any questions. And yes, let's have 15 minutes for this debriefing.
Thank you. My question from Mr. Nathanael about I was very interested by your conclusion about preserving collective memory and which ways as researcher, teacher, journalist you think is very helpful to achieve that, especially considering what we learned with Wija, that the conservative forces have learned very well how to talk to young people. So how to occupy these grounds to make sure that young people actually remember in Southeast Asia, it's the common anti-communist insurgency that has been completely forgotten. Yeah.
As that, I would say that the first battleground, the first curve that civil society organizations and anyone care about preserving democracy or promoting democracy should win is the education curriculum discourse. That's some young people they are online, some others they are not, but they are most of the one going to school. That's the first thing that you have to not control, but you have to be the tough there. And Indonesia is not doing quite well on that regard because the ideas of talking about there's this quite like philosophy in Indonesian culture that we don't talk about the badness of other people, especially those who have passed away. So Suharto has died. You don't talk bad about Suharto, but you can actually talk about what Suharto said he did without actually making the person like a devil or something. Yeah. Yeah. But we haven't been able to do that, and it shows up in the surface that these people do not know about how Indonesia transitioned from the Suharto regime to democracy, like how they knew probably Indonesia has always been democracy because they were born after Indonesia became democracy. So schools are going to be the key. It's not in the it's in the curriculum to some extent. It's in the curriculum in the sense that there was a regime under Suharto and was not really democratic. But then the details about what happened, the shootings of students, the military, the kidnappings, they're not in the curriculum. And that's why also people who are generally not quite resistant when the military officers entering political space again or civic space again because they didn't know that that's what happened under Suharto. Like they cannot details are missing from the curriculum, and I think that's something that we need to fix.
Hi, my name is Erica Larson. I'm a research fellow at ARI, the Asian Research Institute at US in Singapore. So I think my question is maybe more for Niall, but also it kind of draws on things that all of the panelists mentioned. So yeah, it would be great to hear from the other panelists as well. So my question is more about the shifting landscape of less political competition that Mas Alex described. And as Syed also sort of motioned to this Prabowo strategy of power consolidation. And I think we all heard also Prabowo's statements about opposition as being a Western value, right? To say that it's something that's quite negative. And so, you know, my interest is in young voters' ideas, which is why I mentioned, you know, your name as well. And so I'm sort of wondering how this bigger new strategy, this strategy of Prabowo in terms of power consolidation, sort of this expanding coalition, if we know how much it's impacting individual voting behaviors, but also political values. And the reason why I'm thinking this way, I think some of you know I do research and I've been talking to student activists. So they're a very specific subset of these young voters who have a lot of political knowledge. And so especially when you're sharing about the collective memory, right, these are students that have educated themselves about the collective memory. So I was talking to some of them who had supported Ganjar in the presidential election. And there was one student who was Chinese Indonesian, and he was supporting Ganjar. So I asked, who do your parents support? And he said, oh, they voted for Prabowo. And I was surprised. So I was asking more about it, and he said that he asked his parents who they were voting for. They said Prabowo. He was like, why? How could you do that? And they said, it's because he's going to win. Right? We want to be on the winning side, so we need to vote for him. So it just sort of got me thinking about, how much, or can we even know, how much this political strategy is also impacting the way that individual voters are thinking, or their own values about sort of obedience and so forth. So, thank you. Anyone who wants to answer?
Who wants to answer this question?
Okay, sure. Okay, thanks, Erika. Yes, I think this is I think what I take from from listening to all the presentation today is that you have this complex factor of both, how Indonesians are typically socialized, especially when it comes to political socialization, as well as you also have like you also have the supply side factor, like coming from the political elite. That I think some of the survey findings that Naya mentioned, that while in general Indonesians support democracy, they also tend to support people with politicians who are shown to be to have a very strong mind, and then willing to be willing to run in an iron fist. And then of course also there is also the support that you have to be obedient to the whoever be in the authority, whoever siapa saja yang menjadi pemerintah, which is it's very well pronounced within the Indonesian society. I think even though we don't have the collective memory of what happened in 1965 or 1998, but these expectations that Indonesians have to obey authority. There is a strong preference toward a strong man, which in Indonesian context usually mean somebody from the military. I think this is all contributed to what happened in February last February, when Prabowo won, and he not only winning but winning decisively. But then you also have a lot of manipulation of voters' mind as well, and this is where about the role of political buzzers, what Wijayanto spoke about very. This is where the influence can be found. Like I know that a lot. I confess a lot of people from from my own family also voted for Prabowo. And I discovered two reasons why most of them chose to vote for Prabowo. One is yes, one is like what you from the person you spoke with, Erika, that we feel we have to support who the candidate who's about to win, but there's also an element of political manipulation by buzzers, that there's so much negative campaign against both Ganjar as well as Anies. Like for Ganjar, people spoke about, oh, he's basically a clone of Megawati Soekarno Putri, PDIP chairperson. If Ganjar win, it's going to be President Boneka, it's going to be a puppet of Megawati, which ironically, this was also the same accusation, 10 years ago, Prabowo, when he ran against Jokowi. The same type of accusations his campaign team often accused of Jokowi of, that, Jokowi is going to be Boneka of PDIP. But the same level of accusations are now levied against Ganjar. And then for Anies, the people talk about, his role in the 212, the Aksi Bela Islam of 2016, 2017 against Ahok. And then, well, the pastors mentioned Anies is going to be an Islamist president. If he wins, he's going to restore, the Jakarta Charter, Piagam Jakarta, which was like, this 1945 fact among the Islamic leaders of the period to support, Islamic law or Sharia. So thanks to all this, negative campaigning, this also helped turn the tide, where there was an overwhelming support of for Prabowo and that of his coalition, the KIM. And then this is something that I noticed a lot of this negative campaigning will also repeated during the regional election as well. That basically anybody, the PDIP candidate were accused of candidate Boneka of Megawati, and that and so I think it has a lot of effect. But of course, there's also an impact of vote buying, gun source distribution in many of the regions as well. But I think among the more middle class, better voter or young voters use social media a lot. The role of manipulation by these political bastards, something that cannot be, there is something that that cannot be dismissed because they are really quite powerful. But of course, on the context of that, the conservative political culture that one ought to obey authority, one or there is one ought to prefer a strongman leader rather than non-strongman who may have better ideas, that it's all conspired toward producing overwhelming victory for Prabowo. Okay, Mas Nail or Bang Husi? Okay.
For me, I just add something. So if you look at the Indonesian elections, right? So like I said, the concepts and theories are one, but the practical side of things are always different. So in Indonesia, I would say sometimes the mobilizing factors are plays an important role. So the politics is one side, but the society is also another. So if you look at, like for example, the NU, Muhammadiyah, and all other mass organizations, they are also crucial in actually shaping the society in terms of who they need to vote. So if you look at the way, I would say, the religious side plays in the politics, right? So normally sometimes they would actually engage some religious scholars or kiai to actually influence the society there and to take part in or support in some of the politicians there in that center. So in other words, in Indonesia, it's not only merely about the politics meant for politicians, but it involves a lot more than the politicians are. So you have the society, you have the oligarchs, you have the money politics and everything in one.
And what Huzaifah mentioned about the role of NU and Muhammadiyah was very true. And I think just spoiler alert for my second talk this afternoon. I think whichever argument I wrote for my book chapter, you all have to be rewritten and reassessed, because guess what happened during the 2024 campaign? Both NU and Muhammadiyah support Prabowo. And unlike the ideological divergence that they had during Jokowi era, they all came together to support Prabowo, and both of them receiving a lot of payback in form of ministerial appointments.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Wijayanto didn't have the possibility to reply to any questions. I'm sorry for that. We had so many technical issues at the beginning. So I would like to thank you very warmly to all the speakers, because they have been very effective in taking their time.